Large groups of men fighting with their muscles, their spears, and eventually their swords and their crossbows, and then their guns and their cannons.
Scientific evidence remains inconclusive as to whether human activities affect the global climate. So there's simply no reason to take drastic action now.
Science is our journey, our fight for uncovering the laws of nature and leveraging them to understand the universe and to lessen the amount of suffering in the world.
The Space Force. I'm not joking.
We've been busy mapping where weapons flow in this world, especially those that originate in the United States.
How does a boy born into poverty become the richest man in the world? Andrew Carnegie is the personification of the American dream.
Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not.
Back when I was in Russia in the 1990s, Putin and his oligarchs ruled the roost. They went around the world buying influence, aggressively suing anybody that challenged them or exposed them, and looked like they owned the world.
It just started to change so quickly, faster and faster, until eventually we got this.
They realized that it was going to be an existential threat to their business, but they made a deeply unethical decision.
Because they behaved in such an arrogant and aggressive way, and they were throwing their money around so much, a lot of people went along with it.
Private corporations who make unfathomably powerful death machines and then ship those weapons to every corner of the globe.
And his actions resulted in countless unnecessary, brutal deaths.
The evidence that I've seen is that he is homicidal. He kills his enemies or poisons them.
Ukraine can stop Putin. Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons it needs to defend itself.
What an irony that the promotion of peace and security is sell killing machines to other countries.
There are people who believe this creates better peace and security.
It's been a complete shock and surprise to me to see that the world has changed, how the tide has turned, and how the world finally woke up after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine and said, wow, this guy is a monster.
Once Western ammunition gets into the Ukrainians again and their supplies are coming in, at that same time we're going to see an improvement in the Ukrainian Air Force capability with F-16s.
That is all Ukraine is asking. They're not asking for American soldiers. In fact, there are no American soldiers at war in Ukraine, and I'm determined to keep it that way.
In the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, women have been allowed in the sanctuary for decades, and only recently allowed in the sanctuaries in Russian Orthodox churches.
Hopefully Germany will change its political stance and Taurus missiles will go in. America will change its stance and we'll see longer range ATACMS missiles going in.
Why do countries, especially the United States, make and sell weapons to every corner of the globe?
Andrew wrote $480 million. With inflation, that price works out around $17 billion today.
We're already seeing NATO nations turning around saying, we don't care if you use our weapons to attack into Russia. That is sending a very clear statement to Vladimir Putin.
And the marriage vows in Ukraine have been love and honor, not obey.
Bowing down to a Russian leader, I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable.
The United States has a massive presence all around the world, selling jets and guns and tanks and missiles and bombs and radar and helicopters.
And so there's a lot more feminism in that country than people think. So the women have been very empowered.
Exxon was not just the largest oil and gas company in existence. It was the largest company, period, in existence.
That was a Russian A325 Noodle hypersonic missile.
This is what our military brass wanted. They saw a war with Russia, nuclear exchange with Russia, as not only inevitable, but also desirable because they wanted to do it now. Oh, we still had a superiority.
America's comeback is building the future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, investing in all America, in all Americans, to make sure everyone has a fair shot. We leave no one behind.
We froze the Russian government money and we've frozen the oligarch money.
Russia's first destructive test of a direct ascent anti-satellite weapon.
When you see the little children's faces when the air raid alarm goes off, it's entirely heartbreaking.
You know, every time the West says it's going to supply this, Putin turns around and says, we're going to go for nuclear escalation. And it's not got there. He doesn't have the capability.
I think that, of course, there are all of these wondrous stories of this great Ukrainian heroism, just bringing up a child who's terrified by air raid alarms and getting on and somehow, doing the best you can.
15 million new jobs in 3 years, a record.
Observers knew that it was always a question of when, not if, the nation developed and deployed weaponry designed to destroy enemy satellites, but now that moment had arrived.
What they hadn't prepared for was just how united the workers were. They'd reached a breaking point, as they'd given so much of themselves to the mill that they deeply believed they were entitled to at least some of its success.
The plans division is the dirty tricks. It's the black ops, fixing elections, murdering what they call executive action, which means killing foreign leaders, making small wars, and bribing and blackmailing people, stealing elections, and that kind of thing.
We started working together very actively after the murder of my lawyer in Russia, Sergei Magnitsky. Sergei Magnitsky had been murdered after uncovering a massive government corruption scheme.